This is a short video about replacing the standard headlight in your adventure bike with something that is actually useful. Now, I'm talking about the single-cylinder bikes. I don't mean things like the 890 or the T7 or things like that, which are much bigger and come with more modern lights, but this is a KTM 500, a 2018 model. But I'm talking about things like DR650, DRZ400, any of the bikes like that. I've owned quite a few of them over the years, and one of the key things I've noticed is that the headlights are generally terrible. I think the worst headlight I ever experienced was on a BMW Cross Challenge. I got caught out one evening, ride finished late, had to ride up a major rural highway, and the Cross Challenge headlight was absolutely atrocious. A torch or a candle would have been better. So from that moment on and subsequent bikes, including the DR, I decided I never intend riding at night, but if you ever get caught out, I don't want to ever be stuck in that situation where I basically can't see what's coming up. So that's the point of this video today. Let's just talk about some of the advantages in changing your light. Well, the obvious one is for if you ever ride at night time, you know, you've got to have much better lights than come standard on these adventure bikes. So, and take advantage of the fact that LED lights are cheap. That's really the only way to go these days. So that one. And then of course there's a cost saving, a considerable cost saving, because if I was to replace the headlight in this KTM with, say, one of the Baja Designs or motor-minded lights, and there might be others, but I've checked currently you'd be looking at upwards of 800 Australian dollars to get those sort of lights, so they're very expensive. So that's one issue, and because if you're handy, you can do this yourself if you've got a bit of time. By putting on another light, I wanted to push it further forward and get a bit more space at the front, because there's a massive wiring, they're all jammed up, and also the KTM Speedo is down a lot and hard to get to, so I wanted to sort of bring it further up. Another advantage is the fact that I need electricity for my GPS, I need electricity for a USB charger, and I need wiring for my heated hand grips. So that meant that I was running 3 sets of fused wires from the battery all up under the tank. I installed a fuse box at the front, so a single power running from the battery to the fuse box meant I was able to eliminate all these wires with that change. So I was really happy to do that. Another big plus, in fact it might even be nearly the biggest advantage the way I see it, I don't ride at night time. I never want to ride at night time. So riding in the daytime in rural roads, we're on our dirt, we come out onto rural roads, they could be a rural highway, a state highway, and you know, up to 100 kilometres an hour. These LED lights are fantastic for making you stand out on country roads. A bit later on I might be able to show some video of myself and my friend John, who's got a KTM. I might be able to show you how effective these lights work in the daytime, so that's got to be a huge safety factor. So there's quite a lot of advantages to making the change, but you know, you've got to be a bit handy, and you've got to have a bit of time on your hands to do it. Now, just for a few details about what I've done, how I did it, and what things that I used. All right, so what I've got here is obviously 3 LED lights. Now, these 2 ones here are just 2 eBay cheapies. I had them on my old DR650. They're 2 10-watt lamps, and I think I might have paid maybe $30, $35 quite a few years ago. So effectively I had them, it really didn't cost me anything. So I thought, oh, well, I could use those for low beam. But I wanted something for high beam, something that was really good. So through an ADV rider forum, one of the Australian members put me onto this. This is a steady light, STEDI, and it's got 4 10-watt LED lights there, and it's fantastic as the high beam. I've got a nighttime photo I took of the bike in my back lane there, and I'll show you a bit later on the low beam and the high beam and show you how good they are. So this steady was only about $90, might have been $100 delivered, and as I say, that you could, I think you can buy lights like that now on eBay. So all up, you've got about $120, $130 worth of lights there, and I'm really happy with it. Now, as a comparison, here's the standard KTM headlight, and it's a 35 watt light, and it's not LED. And one of the things I found out from a bit of research is that you can get put in LED inserts in lights, and I did that on my DR, and that worked quite well. But what's almost as important is the sort of reflector, and I don't think these reflectors are any good. You know, it's a cheap and nasty sort of plastic thing. They've been using this sort of thing for years. I don't even know how well this works at night. Couldn't even be bothered trying to find out, and I haven't got any film to show you. But that's what I replaced. In terms of weight, yes, the lights do weigh more, but who cares when you've got fantastic lights? So they're the comparisons. All this blue vinyl tape. I don't like orange, so I've changed the colour of my bike. I sometimes call this my WR500. I'll just show you what the cockpit looks like with my new system. So one of the big benefits is that the standard KTM Speedo is now up a lot higher, and it's just easy to sort of get to, as all these, put your hands in there, you're trying to push buttons and everything, so it's a bit more visible, although I use my GPS for speed anyway. I think you can just see it here. There's a USB plug there. That's just velcroed onto a metal bracket I had there for another reason. So of course I've got the good old Oxford heated hand grips. They're fantastic. So that's just what it looks like. There's a bit more space there, and I do have a homemade screen there. Part of the bottom piece is missing. I'm still mucking around with it, but generally I'm pretty happy with the cockpit. That's a large RAM ball mount, and off that I mount my GPS. So I know a lot of people install these expensive tower systems, but you know, I'm pretty happy with this. It's a pretty cheap system, and certainly weighs a lot less than a tower system. But you know, that's what the KTM cockpit looks like. Of course, the biggest thing with changing the headlight arrangement is you've got to build some sort of structure to hold it, and you've got to mount it off somewhere, and I just thought the most logical place was the top of the forks. So thought long and hard about making some sort of brackets, but it's pretty messy. But then good old AliExpress, did some searching, and I found these fantastic aluminium clamps. I think they're meant for mounting blinkers or indicators, but they're perfect for what I want. And the great thing is that they make them in sizes going up in 2mm up to about 60mm. So that pretty well exactly fits the diameter there, and that one's different. So they're two different sizes, but they're great. Well made, machined, and that gave me something to start the mounting system on. They were worth about 60 odd Australian dollars delivered from China. I wanted to replace the 3 existing power cables with a single cable just to reduce clutter, and I used this system, which is called a PC8, and it's made by Eastern Beaver, who are in Japan. I first found out about them 5 or 6 years ago when I wanted to install some gadgets on my BMW GS, and I bought this. I think it was the identical system. I was really happy with it, and I thought, well, I may as well use it again. The company is run by a Canadian fellow who lives in Japan. He is a motorcycle and pet owner, two passions which rate highly with me, and his website is designed by him. That means all the text is legible and grammatically correct for English speakers. This is the PC8 fuse box, and the great thing about it is that it gives you 8 circuits, 6 of which are switched and 2 are unswitched. There could be a need where you'll maybe have finished a ride and you want to sort of charge something off the battery, so you could just connect one of the unswitched circuits maybe to an SAE connector, and then you could charge camera batteries or stuff like that. But generally those 8 circuits are more than enough. The Eastern Beaver website has lots of useful advice about everything related to motorcycle wiring, fuses, connectors, and also offers more simple power circuit systems. This is the headlight shroud I bought off eBay. I wanted a plain white shroud about the same size as the KTM shroud. It was supposed to be for a Yamaha and it cost between $30 to $40. Here you can see the first part of the structure. I used 25 by 25mm aluminium angle as it's light and easy to work with. You can see the jumble of wiring that has to fit behind the light, so having the light further forward makes it easier to fit everything in. You can see I marked up the aluminium so that everything was centered. I mounted the vertical supports based on the width of the lights and brackets, and of course the width of the cutout in the new shroud. You can see the low beam horizontal supports in place, held by vice grips. Here you can see the high beam mount in the correct location but not bolted in place. Note the new blinker support brackets, which had to get the blinkers further out beyond the new shroud. I made them wide enough so that the brake lines on the left side ran inside them. You can also just see the round plastic brake cable guide which is bolted to the vertical support. This shows the new shroud in the right location, far enough forward to fit everything behind it. I also had to make sure that the lip was behind the bottom of my screen, as you want air to feed up behind the screen for the best results. I usually mount a lower screen on the top of the shroud which runs up behind the upper screen. I have the low beam lights in their correct position to fit in the shroud cutout, and am finalising the position of the high beam. In this left side view you can see how the brackets for the low beam lights let me move them up and down and side to side. I did this as I didn't know how good their light spread would be, so it gave me a lot of flexibility. In contrast, the spot high beam only needs to rotate in the vertical alignment. Here is the location of the fuse box. It's stuck on using dual lock, which means it's easy to pull off but very secure. I think it looks really good. I had to cut out a piece to fit the high beam light, and I used a hot knife which leaves a smooth edge. The blinkers stand out very well but are easy to remove. The addition of the blue vinyl tape makes it even better. Here you can see the space under the seat where you've got to try and fit the leads in. There's the fuses for the PC8. There's a relay just there, so it's sort of jammed there between the wire and that part of the bits and pieces of the bike. So it's sort of push it right down, it barely fits. So that gives you an idea of how you've got to fit these cables under the seat on the KTM 500. Very congested. Here are 2 photos I took of the lights at night. I took these in my back lane, which isn't the best place, but I think it shows how well the lights work. In this first one, there is an overhead street light just on the left, so the immediate area in front of the bike is lit. There is another overhead light on the left at the end of the lane. This shows the low beam lights, and even though they weren't aimed correctly, I am pretty happy with the spread of light. In the second photo, this is high beam and I am very happy with the result. The light coloured wall at the end is about 120 metres away, and you can see it lighting up the back fences pretty well. Unfortunately, due to these fences, you can't see how good the spread of light is. But I think it would be good enough on country roads at legal speeds. The next few scenes show the effectiveness of these LED lights in daylight. They are only brief and were taken on dirt roads, but they are an extra safety feature worth considering for daylight riding. A couple of the scenes show my friend on his 500. He made his own LED lighting system, and it's a really good one as well.